we find that this law has a section that says that it prevails over all other written law. So this law, being the law that comes later, is then seeking to prevail over the Right to Information Act as well. And now you put into that context that this law requires every official that joins the Bribery Commission to sign an oath of secrecy, which means that they will be bound by secrecy, including the information officer. And the only exception provided for that is that the Director General may, with the authorization of the Commission, release certain information to social media and to the mainstream media purportedly to maintain transparency. So that creates a different regime to what is foreseen under the Right to Information Act, and therefore flies in the face of and goes against the transparency and accountability that such a law, at a time like this, especially when citizens have lost faith in law enforcement, lost faith in accountability for the crimes of corruption that has brought this country to its knees, this is a particular problem. And the second one is about Section 119 that has been debated now in society quite a bit. Now, there is an equivalent of Section 119 that says that if a person knowingly makes a complaint that doesn't, in their belief, amount to a crime or an offence under this law, that they can be liable to a fine and or imprisonment. This exists even in the current law. Now the new law also seeks to bring in this as an offence. However, to the best of our knowledge, and we are informed that this offence has never been used in Sri Lanka. No prosecution has happened under this offence. Why is there a need for us to bring in such a regressive provision into the new law? Because it can create a situation where people hesitate that they might be witch hunted or targeted for merely having made a complaint, and this applies to organizations like TISL as well. There is this understanding or this narrative that has been created that this law will solve all the problems of corruption in Sri Lanka, and that this law covers all the aspects of corruption in Sri Lanka. It certainly does not. It covers certain aspects of corruption, and it does so well in certain instances. We have had laws for years in Sri Lanka that are able to address the issues of large-scale corruption, grand corruption that Sri Lanka is experiencing currently. The lack of law has never been the problem in addressing the issue of corruption in Sri Lanka. We are operating in a system which we are beginning to call state capture, where the institutions of the state, including the legislature, the executive, law enforcement authorities, the public service, operates in the interests of a few and not in the interests of the public.
Therefore, Transparency International Sri Lanka calls upon the government, with the technical assistance of the International Monetary Fund, to rectify these concerns in the law forthwith, and further to continue to engage with citizens and experts in civil society in order to adopt a holistic approach to achieve the envisaged goal of eradicating corruption in Sri Lanka.
What the new law does is that it requires that all declarations of assets and liabilities be submitted to a central electronic system that is held within the CIABOC, the Bribery Commission, and that this system, the electronic system, has a way to verify and also raise red flags if there are misdeclarations or if there are unusual situations where there is an unusual amassing of wealth. So this is a very positive change in the law, and it also requires that an asset declaration once submitted, subject to a redaction of sensitive information, will be publicly available for access by citizens and civil society as well as law enforcement. A second critical change is that this law, this proposed law in its current form, brings within its ambit private sector bribery. That is, bribery that the private sector engages in vis-a-vis other private sector actors. And it would hold senior officials in the private sector, owners of companies, etc., liable for carrying out bribery. It also brings within its ambit sports-related corruption. and also the issue of sexual bribery. This law brings it within its ambit and specifically recognizes it, empowering people to complain about it and also making it the norm for prosecutions to happen on that basis and not merely on the basis of sexual harassment. It certifies and verifies further the power that the Bribery Commission would have to carry out investigations on its own motion without having to resort to the previous position, which is where it would wait for a complaint to be made, even where there is a big conversation happening in society about a particular type of corruption that has happened.